Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our April 8th, 2024 council meeting. The recommendation is that we call our meeting held on April the 8th to order at 6 p.m. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. And the next recommendation is that a closed council meeting be held on April 8th at 6 p.m. at the Wilmot Administrative Complex in accordance with Section 239(2)H of the Municipal Act 2001 to consider the following: confidential information supplied in confidence from the Province of Ontario, Section 239(2)H, information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province or territory, or a Crown agency of any item. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. We will be back here at approximately 7 p.m. for the remainder of our open meeting. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Monday, April 8th regular council meeting. We will jump right into reconvening into open session at 7:04 p.m. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. For our moments of reflection, I wanted to highlight two things. One was the solar eclipse that we had take place this afternoon, and just noting that millions of people across North America turn their gaze upwards, hopefully with glasses and protective eyewear on, to witness a highly anticipated celestial event, and that the next solar eclipse in this particular area won't be happening until August of 2044, so a few years out still. And I also wanted to note National Volunteer Week, which is next week, April 14th to 20th. And the theme this year is Every Moment Matters. And just with that, I wanted to extend gratitude on behalf of myself and council to all of the volunteers in Wilmot Township. We are fortunate to even have some of them tonight who will be delegating to us. And just to note that the sharing of your time, skills, empathy, and creativity is vital to inclusivity, strength, and well-being of our community. Whether you're one of our township's volunteer firefighters, a member of a service club, or one of our many individuals who help others through churches, healthcare, or directly in the community, you make a difference, and it is noticed, and thank you very much for volunteering. We also look forward to recognizing our volunteers at the Citizens Awards later this year. For the territorial land acknowledgement, we've gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. We also want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant and the First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples, we are reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community. For today's agenda, we do have the following additions to the agenda. Item number 2, which was the closed session, and item number 3, which was to reconvene into open session, as well as item number 17, which is business arising from closed session. So if we could have the agenda as adopted as presented for April 8th. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Dunstall. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I wasn't for a COR 2024-19 Council Committee appointment recommendation. I wasn't sure if this would be a conflict, but I did not want to contact the Integrity Commissioner because I think we've paid him enough in our taxes. So I will declare a conflict for that piece.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We do have our minutes from our previous meeting of March 25th to be adopted. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? That carries unanimously. And on to our presentation. I will now invite Peter Gingrich on behalf of the Wilmot Heritage Brigade to bring your presentation to council and say thank you very much for joining us this evening, Peter, and for all of the fire brigades in the crowd tonight as well, and you will have 10 minutes.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Solonen, council, staff, and all residents of Wilmot Township. I am Peter Gingrich, and president of Wilmot Heritage Fire Brigades. I'm here tonight not to ask for money, well, although that may happen sometime, but to inform you of the jewel of history that is here in Wilmot Township. The first fire service was introduced to Wilmot Township in New Hamburg 167 years ago in the year 1858. Baden Fire Brigade was established in 1883 and New Dundee in 1914. Wilmot Township Fire Brigades was formed 137 years later in 1995 by 7 retired firefighters that had a strong desire to preserve the deep history. Wilmot Heritage Fire Brigades, this group of individuals has grown into a thriving organization with over 80 members. With very little help from the Township of Wilmot, Region of Waterloo, Government of Ontario, or the Canadian government, we have not only survived, but we have grown into a fantastic active organization that has 6 motorized vehicles, 3 horse-drawn units, 6 hand-pulled pieces of historic firefighting equipment. We also have a huge static display of firefighting memorabilia that ranges from nozzles, uniforms, turnout gear, fire extinguishers, handheld fire department tools, photographs, helmets, miniature replicas of Baden's early pumpers, newspaper articles, and minute books. We have the names and years of service of the people that served to protect the citizens of Wilmot. Also in our collection is an early 110-volt electric defibrillator and the first Jaws of Life that were in Waterloo Region and located in the Baden Station. The Jaws were bought and paid for by the Baden firefighters themselves. Wilmot Heritage Fire Brigades is a not-for-profit registered charitable organization. It is operated 100% by volunteers with no paid personnel and is funded almost entirely by fundraising efforts of the organization itself. We do not charge for visits and/or tours, although donations are greatly appreciated. We are open Wednesday evenings year-round and Saturdays during the summer months. We are also available almost any time by request. Some schools, including the Amish community and Old Orders, have traveled 30-35 kilometers to view our displays of equipment and other items. We have set up heritage fire displays in Wilmot Township at many different locations in numerous places in Waterloo Region, and with some events as far away as Ottawa. We were invited and very happily responded to set up a semi-permanent display in Toronto at the Parliament buildings for 3 months. Before it was over, they asked us to please stay an additional 3 months. At this point in time, we are absolutely filled to the brim and beyond, and we have many additional articles, both large and small, that are stored off-site because we do not have enough room in our current location. We have been saving our pennies. Someday we hope to have larger facilities that will allow us to have a much better organized display, as well as an area to restore, repair, and maintain all of our equipment and artifacts. And then maybe we will even have a washroom. Currently, we have no water or sanitary facilities. Wilmot Heritage Fire Brigades is a great asset to Wilmot Township and its citizens, and it is one of only 5 fire department museums in Ontario. On a side note, I believe 2 of them have closed. We invite you, Mayor, Council, citizens of Wilmot, to come visit us and absorb some of Wilmot's heritage. Thank you. And if there's any questions, I will try to answer for you now.
Thank you very much, Peter. I do have a question. Did you want to share your regular bottle drive information with everyone tonight?
I'm all too happy to. That happens the last Saturday every month. We have a regular bottle drive, cans, bottles, anything aluminum. We collect scrap metal. We take that at any time. And we also have a 50-50 lottery that we run on a monthly basis. It's an online lottery, and we run that every month.
And where online could residents find that if they wanted to?
WilmotFireMuseum.com or Facebook.
Wonderful. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Martin.
Through you, Mayor Salonen, thank you, Peter, for coming to join us this evening, and thank you for your work. I have bought some tickets. That's a good reminder to keep going online every month to buy those tickets. What are the hours you're open? I would like to come over. So it's every Wednesday evening, you said?
We open Wednesday evening, technically 7 o'clock. We leave, usually a couple of hours. But we're often there 6:30, something like that.
Okay.
And if you go to the website, there's a phone number there. You can make arrangements for whenever you want. It's my number. You'll get me.
Any other questions, councillors? Seeing none, I did also want to say thank you again. I know last week you guys hosted myself and Tim Lewis, as well as Parliamentary Secretary, to the Fire Brigade Museum, and I know it was like watching kids in a candy store, myself included. A particular notable one, which I didn't see on the slide, was the bomb, like the firebomb grenades. Those were super cool. I've never seen those before.
You're too young.
Well, I'm fortunate that we have people who preserve our history, and it is really a gem in our community, so I do encourage people to go out and support your cause.
We appreciate that, and we would like everybody to come and visit us, and please help promote us. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. We have no delegations this evening or correspondence, and we do have consent agenda item 12.1, which is the renewal of the lease agreement with the Wilmot Heritage Fire Brigades. Did anybody want to pull that item? Okay, seeing none, I will ask for a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favor, and that carries unanimously. For all of those who I know who were here for that presentation and that vote, we would highly encourage you to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we also appreciate it if you do need to slip out. We will jump into report 13.1, which is the councillor committee appointment, and the recommendation is that report COR-2024-19 be received as information, and further that councillor, which we will discuss who will be filling that blank, be appointed to the 2024 Wilmot Canada Day Task Force. Procedurally, before I get a mover and seconder, I think we'll have the conversation, if that works for our clerk, to then have it all at once. So in that case, I will invite our Manager of Legislative Services and Clerk, Jeff Bunn, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor Salonen, and through you to Council. This is a very quick report and very easy one for me to speak to, as it's just looking for a member of Council to step forward to fill a vacancy on the 2024 Wilmot Canada Day Event Task Force. In the report, we do outline the meeting dates that are anticipated, given that the event is rapidly approaching, and we've also included the terms of reference to give you a background as to the responsibilities. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Are there any questions at this time, councillors? Seeing none, I will ask for suggestions of if somebody would like to be appointed or if they'd like to nominate someone, and then we can add Councillor Cressman.
I would, excuse me, I would like to nominate Steve Martin.
Very good. And any other nominations at this time then, councillors? Councillor Martin, are you okay with your name being nominated?
Through you, Mayor Salonen, I would be happy to serve on the Canada Day Committee, and I don't know if I should have put in a request earlier. If I do that, could I nominate Stuart Cressman for the Heritage Committee?
So I did double check on this one, anticipating that's how it might go. So you are more than able, should this pass as the nomination, to serve on this committee, and then if you choose to step down from the Heritage Committee, then we have a report that will essentially look the exact same, just with the terms of reference for Heritage Committee coming at our next meeting, at which point Councillor Cressman could be nominated by yourself. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Salonen. Could I also ask, tomorrow evening, both the Heritage Committee and Canada Day Committee are meeting at the same time. I don't know if Councillor Cressman is available tomorrow evening, but is that a possibility that if Councillor Cressman is willing to be on the Heritage Committee, and if he's available tomorrow evening, could that happen?
I'm going to turn that one to our clerk.
Through you, Mayor, there's, I guess, two possibilities for that. The quick answer is no. Unfortunately, the member of council would have to be appointed in order to sit on the committee. So certainly any member of council is welcome to attend any of our committee meetings, but in terms of voting, you'd need to be appointed by your colleagues to make that happen. The only caveat I would add, if council saw it desirable to move forward tonight with an appointment, is council also has the option to waive notice this evening following adoption of this report. A waive notice, you would require a 2/3 majority of those members of council, and then you can move a motion appointing another member this evening if you want to do that.
Through you, Mayor Salonen, could I put forward a motion that, that we waive notice and appoint Councillor Cressman onto the Heritage Committee?
Absolutely. Do you mind if we first deal with this report and then I will call on you to bring forward?
I'm willing for that, except I'm wondering if I can negotiate. I can't do both. Although, having said that, after Canada Day is over, I would be happy to stay on the Heritage Committee, and I don't know if Councillor Cressman, I'm wondering if we can have two councillors on the Heritage Committee. I think we both have interest, if I've understood that from before. So it seems like Heritage Committee is a popular place to be.
I'll turn it over to the clerk again.
So through you, Mayor, the governance policy for committees outlines that we'll have one member of council sitting on each committee. Council could always forego those rules and make a change to that policy. The reason that policy is in place, so I'll just highlight for all of council's benefit, is really to ensure that there is ample opportunity for the citizens' voice to be heard on those committees and not a larger population of council. But I would leave that to council to decide whatever you seem desirable.
One thing I'd maybe just pose then on your negotiations, I wasn't quite anticipating this part. For example, on the ANOVA board, we have the 3 townships that are a part of ANOVA. Only one of the 3 of us mayors actually serve as a voting member on the body, and then the other 2 are an observer, and that's at 16-month increments that we then change over who votes. So I just last week got appointed to be the voting body now, but we're able to be at any meeting in camera, ask all the questions. The only difference is we just don't have the vote, and that's kind of to keep the proportional balance similar to what Clerk Bunn was saying. So I don't know if that's something that might be worth looking at.
Certainly would be fine with me. I could be an observer. Steve is the, Councillor Martin has been the long-serving member of the Heritage Committee, and I'm not trying to displace him. So when he's able to return, I would be more than happy to be the observer.
Councillor Martin?
I'm not sure how much discussion, Mayor Salonen, you're going to allow us to have on this. But so through you, Mayor Salonen, I'm also happy to be the observer on the Heritage Committee and not the voting member. But in anticipation of a further item, I guess that would be 13.2. Are there any rules about how many committees to be on? Like if I have any interest in being on the Prime Minister's Path Committee, is that also a possibility?
There's certainly potential for possibility. My understanding is there's no limitation of how many committees you can be on. It's more so general consensus of council and that you yourself have enough time, of course. Yes. Okay. So with that, if we could maybe focus back on the, I guess, recommendation, the nomination for Councillor Martin. I've seen no other questions or pushback, so I would suggest that the recommendation that I get a mover and seconder for is that this report be received for information and further that Councillor Martin be appointed to the 2024 Wilmot Canada Day Task Force. That's moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favor? That carries. And I'm assuming you abstained, Councillor Martin, and Councillor Dunstall, this was your conflict of interest. Okay, very good. On to your now, I guess, notice to waive.
Then I would like to put forward a motion to waive notice that we appoint Councillor Cressman onto the Heritage Committee.
And so for clarity, just based off of the conversation we had, that would be for him to be the voting member and you would be stepping down to an observer role? Yes? Okay. So I would require 2/3 vote for this, councillors. It's been moved by Councillor Martin. I would need a seconder. seconded by Councillor Dunstall. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. I'm assuming you're choosing to abstain, Councillor Cressman. All right, so notice has been waived. Now this would be for the motion that we'd be voting on, that it be Councillor Cressman being appointed and Councillor Martin would become an observer on this committee. Any other questions, comments, or I suppose nominations? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries with Councillor Cressman. I'm sorry, I just forgot to get the moved and seconded off that. Moved by Councillor Wilkinson, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Thank you, my apologies for that. That is carried with Councillor Cressman abstaining from the vote. We will now go on to 13.2, which is the Township of Wilmot Engagement Framework for the Prime Minister's Path. Again, just so that we don't need to make an amendment, I would ask that we turn it over to CAO Chambers to introduce, and then we discuss who we'd like to nominate, and then we will put the actual motion on the floor. So I will turn it over to CAO Chambers.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Salonen. In February and March of 2024, Council received staff reports that included options for next steps for the Prime Minister's Path engagement for Council's consideration. And on March 25th, Council approved option number 1, and that really follows the direction that was given by the previous Council in July of 2021, based on the First Peoples Group recommendation, and that's to create a working group comprised of a balanced representation of the individuals and communities within the Township of Wilmot to discuss, develop, and suggest plans for the implementation of next steps centered in community, cohesion, and healing, and that includes engagement with Indigenous representatives. In order to move forward with that creation of the working group, staff recommended that the Township issue a request for proposals to hire a firm that specializes in creating inclusive engagement plans for diverse communities. And the report before you this evening provides an overview of proposed elements to be included in that RFP to select a consultant who would assist the Township in creating that working group and also to develop an engagement plan and support the working group in their work. Specifically, the firm would assist in creating the working group by offering their insights on how to establish an effective working group, including helping to develop terms of reference and a mandate, which would define the group's purpose, structure, composition, also assisting with the selection process based on their experience, proposing best practices for how to select working group members to ensure that there's diverse representation, and then providing advice to the working group in their work, and that could involve facilitating meetings, promoting collaboration, and helping with some research. The RFP can also include support for the working group and other activities such as developing a community engagement plan. We thought it would be good to perhaps have some assistance in developing a 2-year community engagement framework that would apply to all projects led by the Township of Wilmot. As you know, the third recommendation in the First Peoples Group report was to improve community engagement overall across the municipality, and so we could use this framework for other projects as well. The report also proposes timelines for the work, with the RFP being developed in April, issued in early May, and awarded in May. And then the RFP will require proponents to submit a recommended timeline for the working group's work plan. And so staff are requesting this evening that 2 members of council be appointed to the RFP review team to help choose the engagement consultant. But we also heard at the last meeting that council was interested in looking at the RFP before it's released to ensure that it meets your needs in terms of what your vision is for engagement on this project. And so we would set that out within the timeline as well, that council members appointed to this would be able to review the RFP, have comments on that before it's released. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions on the report part of this, councillors? I do have questions, and you might have just partly answered some of it. The criteria, specifically on page 3 of the report, is that going into the RFP? Like, is that the foundational work that you're using for the RFP?
Sorry, let me just pull that up. In terms of the criteria, are you speaking to qualifications and the
And other activities.
The basic knowledge?
Yes.
I think we could put that into the RFP as a good to have. Not necessarily every proponent is going to have that, but Ms. Kell and I have been speaking to some engagement experts and firms over the last couple of weeks, and those are things that came up through our discussions that we feel would be beneficial in terms of knowledge for the successful proponent. So you may not get a proponent that has all of those, but some of them could be a nice to have.
So looking at an equity lens, I do have some concerns. Under the support for working groups / other activities, the second point, when it goes on to say various levels of community engagement, and the end of that sentence is as identified in the International Association for Public Participation, brackets IAP2, brackets spectrum of public participation. I've looked into this organization and their certification. Although I agree in essence with their approach, I think actually having that wording could be really limiting to some organizations who might be interested, have a valid skill set, but don't have this certification. I don't want organizations and groups who might have really relevant experience not apply because they don't have that particular certification. And although it is one that I know there are some organizations who use it, it's not a widespread designation. So I would rather just see picking out their equity and diversity points that they have that I think are really compelling and relevant to this application. I personally wouldn't want to see that actual wording in there because I do think that might be limiting to those who are interested and just really hyper-focused versus catching more people interested in the project. I don't know if other councillors have concerns or questions about that, or if that is just a me thing. Councillor Dunstall?
I missed that, so I appreciate that you saw it, and I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
Okay. Would you take that as direction, or would you need an actual vote?
I think, the RFP is still under development, so I think that would be good feedback to give to the review team who is going to formulate the final RFP. So I think we can work with council on any of the concerns. We sort of put in some of these elements for your consideration for an RFP, understanding that this group will finalize the RFP, and we're happy to take feedback in the development of that.
Then to add on to feedback as well, under the qualifications requirement, the second sentence, so under the first bullet, about having an understanding of statues and monuments in North America. Again, I think the North America context might be limiting further. There are lots of global examples, and not just statue specific, but in reconciling history, which I know our conversation has evolved into over the past few times that we've talked about this, where again, I just wouldn't want that to be a limiting factor to people. So I'll just leave that as comment then. And then one other question, in our RFP, do we require, like we did for the strategic plan, a fee to be paid for filing an application? And again, I'm looking at that from an equity lens, if that's a barrier to people applying. My understanding was with the strategic plan, it was something like $150 you had to pay to get the paperwork, and then choose to submit. And I'm curious, I know I'm not super familiar with the process on a whole, but.
I don't believe that's the case. We don't charge for RFPs, to my knowledge. I would look at Ms. Kell to answer that.
Thanks, CEO Chambers. Through you, Madam Chair. I believe it may be something involved in using bids and tenders online, and we can certainly look into that. It's not a fee that is paid to the township. It would be for the use of the tool, which is an online application that, yeah, I think that's correct. But we can certainly get back if the concern is that it would deter someone from applying.
Yes, so I did get, granted it was anecdotal feedback, but anecdotal on the strat plan that there was, I know of at least one organization who didn't apply because that was a limitation for them. So again, just from an equity seeking lens, if we could just explore into that, that would be great. Any other questions or comments on the study part of this? No? Seeing none. Then we will move to nominations. So we are looking for 2 members of council to be on it. Councillor Dunstall.
I would recommend Councillor Wilkinson and Councillor Martin.
Okay. Any other nominations at this moment? Councillor Wilkinson, will you accept your name being nominated? Councillor Martin? Okay. Any other questions or comments on that then, councillors? Seeing none, then I would ask for a mover and seconder to the recommendation that this report be received for information and that council appoints Councillors Wilkinson and Martin to participate in the RFP review team to hire a consultant to facilitate the creation of the Prime Minister's Path Working Group. Councillor Martin.
Through you, Mayor Salonen, can I just ask a question about what you just said?
Yes.
On this motion, maybe I struggle with a false sense of humility, or maybe I just struggle with humility. I'm not sure which, but I hesitate to vote for myself. So if we vote in favor of this report and then separate it, and I don't know, maybe Councillor Wilkinson is very happy to vote for himself, or we could. So that's what I'm wondering. If we abstain from this,
I can separate out the nominations,
or else, yeah, okay. I was just trying to figure that out.
Yep, no, that's perfectly fine, and to be honest, that hadn't crossed my mind. It wasn't my name on there, so I'm happy then to do that in 2 votes. So, or I guess, would you prefer 3 votes, or to do the information and then the 2 separate? Sorry, just a... Okay, we're going to do it in 3 votes. The first one's going to be received for information, to receive this report for information. May I please have a mover on that? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Now, the second motion will be to appoint Councillor Wilkinson onto the RFP review team to hire a consultant to facilitate the creation of the Prime Minister's Path Working Group and the development of an engagement strategy. May I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries. Councillor Wilkinson, I'm assuming you're abstaining. And then our final vote on this one will be that we appoint Councillor Martin to participate on the RFP review team to hire a consultant to facilitate the creation of the Prime Minister's Path Working Group and the development of an engagement strategy. May I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Wilkinson, seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favor? That carries, and I'm assuming you're abstaining from that, Councillor Martin. Very good. Okay, for something that I thought was a short agenda, we certainly made a way to talk about it all. We will jump into our bylaws, and the recommendation is that bylaws that is attached to this agenda be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. We have no notices of motion this evening. I do have some announcements, though, and I will start with the Wilmot Roots Free Tree Giveaway. So this year, in celebration of Earth Day, we will again be offering a free tree giveaway program called Wilmot Roots. Earth Day this year is on April 22nd, and this community initiative is sponsored by a donation from Innova Power and supported by volunteer-based Let's Tree Wilmot. Wilmot residents can choose one of 7 tree species when registering, and registration for a free tree goes live on Tuesday, April the 9th, and will remain open until April 19th or until all 345 trees are gone. The tree pickup will be on Saturday, April 27th at the Wilmot Recreation Complex. For more details, you can go to wilmot.ca/wilmotroots or contact the township. I would recommend, if you would like a tree, to be on the computer right at 9 a.m. On April the 9th, or if you don't have a computer, that's not an easy way for you to order a tree, you can also reach out directly to the township, and staff can help you with that. But they went very quick last year, and it was a very successful program. Our Community Services Master Plan update is that the township continues to invite the community to have their say in what matters in regards to parks, recreation, and recreation facilities as part of the Community Services Master Plan community engagement, which is currently underway. There's now a short survey that is open at wilmot.ca/community services master plan 2024, and the input will be used to help build our master plan. And on that, also a thank you to our staff as well as residents who went to the information session the other week and provided their input on the master plan. Are there any other announcements, councillors? We'll go to Councillor Cressman first.
Yes, I realize normally we don't mention passing of area residents, but attended the funeral of Elroy Good in New Dundee on Saturday. Elroy had served 45 years as a volunteer firefighter on the New Dundee Brigade, and so I thought it fitted into the idea, the thread of volunteerism and service to the community, especially with our attendance here tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor Crestman. We'll go to Councillor Wilkinson.
Yes, through the chair, to actually pick up on the same note as Councillor Cressman, I wanted to mention the passing of Linda Kennedy of St. Agatha, who was a long-standing member of the community, running a very popular restaurant out that way, but also acts as a community builder and strong member of the St. Agatha parish. So we send our condolences to the family.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Salonen. It's hard to follow two sad announcements with a celebration, so I'm sorry to hear about both of those. My announcement is celebratory in nature. The Firebirds, New Hamburg Firebirds, won the Doherty Division Championship on Friday night, and it was quite an exciting game, and as some people like to call it, the barn was full. This is the new barn, because the old barn, I think, is in my neighborhood. But the arena was full. It was amazing to see the stand. It was hard to find a seat. Karen and I, we were crawling over top of people to find a seat. But luckily, people let us crawl over them. And so it was an exciting game. And now tomorrow night, they play Grimsby, and so it's the South Division. And so we'll see where our Firebirds go.
Very good, thank you. Now I just have a vision of you and Karen crawling over people in the arena, but yes, we do wish luck to the Firebirds, as well as I was recently contacted today, actually. I need to read into it a bit more, but from a competing team who will be up against them, saying that they've convinced mayors in the past to take the bet that they have to wear the winner's jersey. So I need to chat to the Firebirds first and make sure we're really confident I'll be wearing a Firebirds jersey. But good luck to the boys there. Oh, I hope it's a clean one. I'm going to need to clarify. Good point. Any other announcements, councillors, that you wanted to raise? Okay, seeing none, we are going to resume into our closed session, and then we will come back up and close out the whole meeting once that has completed. So I will need to recess. I would need a mover for that. Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Dunstall. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, now I believe we are good to go live. If we can have a motion to reconvene, moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Our business arriving from closed is a motion that staff and the mayor be directed to proceed as directed with respect to a matter relating to confidential information supplied in confidence from the province of Ontario. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. And our confirmatory bylaw to be read for a first, second, and third time and finally passed in open council. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Finally, adjournment. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you and have a good night.